Chelsea have gone invincible. In an impressive debut campaign for Bompastor at Stamford Bridge, Chelsea have shattered records en route to their 6th consecutive WSL title. In this video, we break down how they've pulled it off, which players have been key to their success, and why the media has failed to recognise the grandeur of their achievements. This is how Chelsea became unbeatable. Alright, let's get into it then. Chelsea, invincible, record-breaking season. We're discussing how they've managed to pull that off this season, how it ranks to their previous campaigns, and why perhaps the media aren't giving them the respect they deserve. And let's start with how Chelsea have done it then, Harry. Well, actually, what have they done?
It's been a brilliant season. There was a bit of a question around Bompastor and Chelsea coming into this campaign. Could they replicate? Could they go on and better what Emma Hayes had done at Chelsea? And well, I think that we've got our answer. To come in Bompastor's first season, to go invincible, to only drop points on a couple of occasions, to pick up 13 clean sheets in 22 football matches, to concede the least goals in the league. The records just kept coming for Chelsea, and they've gone and smashed some teams out of the park. It's been a brilliant campaign. They're invincible is an incredible achievement, no matter what league you're in or how good you are. So credit to them, and I think that Bompastor answered a lot of questions, but put a real statement out there by taking this Chelsea side to the best that they can be.
Yeah, definitely so. Chelsea, the first invincibles of the 22-game WSL era. I've heard a lot of big media corporations wrongly describe this as the first WSL invincibles, which just isn't factually correct at all. They're definitely not the first women's football in England invincibles. Obviously, the Arsenal side between 2006 and 2009, they didn't lose a game in 4 years. But of the 22-game WSL season, which does make it more impressive because there are more games, but it doesn't discredit those other achievements. But they are the first to do it in this format, and I think the way they've gone about it this season, it's been meticulous, it's been controlled. They've beaten all of the sides around them. Their only draws came against sides lower in the table in more surprising results. But for any team to go invincible in any discipline is always impressive, and to do it at the top level is especially impressive. So yeah, an invincible season, the highest points tally recorded in a 22-game WSL season. So really impressive stuff from Chelsea this season. And I don't think many people expected this. I think there was an expected natural drop-off when Hayes left and Bompastor came in, and the other sides, I mean, look at Man City from last season, only lost it on goal difference. A lot of pundits at the start of the season said Arsenal will win the league, City will win the league. I remember looking at the Sky Sports one, and I think one of their 6 predicted Chelsea to win the league. And that's the thing, I think going into the season, there wasn't the belief that Chelsea were going to be as clear as they were, but they've taken it to a new level, 12 points clear of the rest of the field. It's been a really strong campaign.
Yeah, it has been very, very good. I do think that gap has... Arsenal and Man United have made that gap 12 points and have made it look more impressive because...
That's true, but it's a testament to Chelsea that they've kept going.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's a bit of both.
Because they could have had the same drop-off as those other sides. They could have taken their foot off the gas in the last few games.
Yeah, I get it, but Arsenal realistically should have won more of their games and should have played better. But yeah, Chelsea have done very, very well. And I think to go and to have an invincible season, but also go so deep in the other competitions to win the League Cup, to get to the Champions League semi-finals, and to get to the FA Cup final and potentially go on and win that. To go so deep in the other competitions and still be invincible in the league is very, very impressive. We saw last season that when Chelsea were fighting for that title, when they were pushing, the other competitions fell away. They didn't win the League Cup. They only got to the FA Cup semi-finals, Champions League semi-finals once again. But this season, they've managed to go even better while still maintaining that level in the cup competitions. They haven't, to go invincible and not end up sacrificing, in a sense, another competition, it is very impressive. And yeah, I think that if they walk away with a domestic treble at the end of the season in Bompastor's
invincible domestic treble,
yeah, I mean that would be ridiculous. And they're only one game away from doing that. Even what they've accomplished so far to get to an FA Cup final, to win the League Cup and to go invincible in the league is an achievement in its own right, whether they win the FA Cup or not. If they take that FA Cup, if they take that off the hands of Man United, then suddenly it's Chelsea have done already. Bompastor's come in and is already setting benchmarks that look ridiculously difficult for Chelsea to hit, because that would be the question, is how they replicate it. But overall,
there is the obvious progression of the Champions League. That is what has to be Chelsea's goal next season.
But do they try and win 22? Do they try and win every single game in the league and don't draw a single one? Is that the plan? to try and win 22. But yeah, just an incredible record, especially with how competitive the league is nowadays. You've got, City, Arsenal, and United, all had good opportunities to beat Chelsea. City went 1-0 up at the Etihad against Chelsea in the league. Arsenal took them all away at Stamford Bridge. United only lost 1-0 as well. So it wasn't like Chelsea just smashed everyone out the park. They worked hard and they dug deep, especially against those tougher opposition. And they managed to get the results. Even the Leicester game, where it looked like they were going to lose because they weren't playing very well, Chelsea found a way, and that is what champions do. That is why they've gone invincible, because they've grinded out those results this year. The results they lost last year, they turned into draws this year, and that is why they've gone invincible.
Yeah, and I think the manner in which they have, and we'll get to this in the sort of latter part of the video, I think the manner in which they've gone about this season has then impacted how the media has viewed it. But we'll get to that in a moment. I want to talk first, though, about some of the players that have made this season special for Chelsea. I want to start with someone I think, while she gets her plaudits, I don't think she gets enough. I think she's been under a lot of criticism this season. I want to start with Hannah Hampton, because she stepped up last season, played a bit of a dual role with Zakira Musovic. There was still that rotation in there. And I think for some of those bigger games, we did see Hayes still preferring Musovic. But this season, I think a really important part of what Bompastor's done is name a registered first choice goalkeeper. Rather than having this rotation role, I think it's really important to have her nailed on number one. And I think Hampton's benefited from that. She looks much more consistent, much more confident. Yes, I think she's definitely had some poor performances. I thought Brighton this season was one of her poor performances, but she's been really strong this campaign.
Yeah.
So I think huge credit to her there. She got the Golden Glove in the end, joint award with Fallon Tullis-Joyce. I didn't expect that to happen, but United just kept conceding in the last few game weeks. All their good defensive work they've done the rest of the season was undone by conceding 6 goals over 2 games to Arsenal and Man City. But yeah, Hannah Hampton very much deserving of that award, and a huge part of this Chelsea team. Defensively, you could name a lot of them. I think Natalie Bjorn this season's come on leaps and bounds. I think the one I'd pick out, though, is Sonia Baltimore. It's an unfamiliar role for her this season, that left-back role, but she's come in and looked really solid. I thought at the start of the season we saw her defensive work perhaps wasn't there to play left-back in this league, but she's developed so quickly over the course of a year that, I mean, I think back to the Man City game in November, really incredible defending in that game to keep, I mean, from both her and Bronze, to be fair, to keep the City wingers quiet. So, yeah, I thought that was really impressive how we saw her adjust to that role and obviously give Chelsea that attacking upside of having a winger playing fullback. When she bombs forward, she's a huge threat.
Yeah.
So I thought she's done really well. To move into midfield then, I feel like the only player here who probably deserves it, or, they've all done well, but I think Erin Cuthbert, hugely underrated. I think Rob on Twitter, he's a Chelsea journalist, made a really good point saying, obviously Mariona Calnete won WSL Player of the Year. That's fine. I think she had a fantastic season, so fair enough. But he made the point that Cuthbert won't get recognised in the same way that Calnete will when Arsenal win. When Chelsea win, a lot of that will be due to Cuthbert, but because Cuthbert perhaps hasn't scored the winning goal, hasn't got an assist in that game, people undervalue her contribution to this Chelsea team. A hugely combative midfielder, someone who provides a lot of the ball progression for Chelsea. Obviously, pops up with a very important goal every now and then as well, which makes her a real fan favourite. And I think a lot of people underestimate just how big an impact she can have on this team.
Yeah, I think the other thing with Cuthbert is the consistency. Over this season, we've seen the rotation between Captain and Nusken, and then when Chelsea played the double pivot, and then when Walsh came in, you had Walsh, Nusken, Captain all rotating. The one player that seemed to remain in every single midfield, also John Francois also rotated in there, but the one player that seemed to always remain in that midfield was Erin Cuthbert, because she just gives you something else. She just gives you that fight, and as you say, always consistent, and then comes up those big moments. The header in the last minutes against Man City was a huge moment in Chelsea's season, because if that game was a draw, then suddenly Arsenal and Man United were right behind the Blues. But Erin Cuthbert powers one through in the 93rd minute, and Chelsea win that game, and that's what she does. She comes up with big goals. She, in the big moments, she delivers, and credit to her, because she's she's part of that back bracket of players that rarely gets a rest, is usually playing every 3-4 days, and still plays to a very, very good standard.
Well, I think it's to her merit that she has been that constant over such an extended period of time now. She was undroppable for Emma Hayes. I think people would have looked at Bompastor coming in and saying, well, is she still going to be undroppable? She absolutely has been. She's
Yeah.
been the key midfielder for Chelsea this season. So huge credit there. I think when Kira Walsh come in, a lot of people would rightfully go, well, what's going to happen now? We've seen Cuthbert still excel in that role. And Walsh perhaps not the best fit for this team, but she's still done all right since coming in. Attacking players then, Aggie Jones is the obvious one. I think while everyone else has either literally or figuratively fell apart around her, she's been the consistent forward in this team. 9 goals this season at WSL. Scored that late winner against Liverpool as well to seal the win, which gave Chelsea the record points total. And she's come up with a lot of big goals this season, Aggie Beaver-Jones. I think she's taken huge strides in her game. Gone from a player who was a really well-liked player and a really exciting young player into more of a consistent goal-scoring forward. She's brought output into this Chelsea side when they've lacked it this season, with Lauren James spending most of the campaign out injured, with no Sam Kerr this campaign, with Myra Ramirez, not really firing. I think it's fallen on Aggie Beaver-Jones to step up into that role. That she had the help of Carnereid for the first few months of the season, and Micario, when she's been fit, has contributed as well, and Wrighton towards the back half of the season. But I think the one consistent striker throughout the campaign has been Beaver-Jones.
Yeah, as you say, it's weird to see a league-winning side not have a recognised... Like, Chelsea haven't got a striker in there who's gone and scored 15 goals, and they've taken the league by storm. Exactly. Everyone has chipped in with a few, but the player who just outstands that by a little bit more is Beaver-Jones. And in a year where I think there was a lot of pressure on her, there was a lot of question marks around would she get minutes, and going into next season with the returning Fischel, with Sam Kerr returning soon, for next season, there's a lot of pressure. Yeah,
is she ever going to return? That's the question.
There was a lot of pressure on Beaver-Jones because she needed to perform. Because if she didn't, then it felt like next season potentially she's not going to feature as much. But I think her form this season, especially in 2025, has kind of proven to Bompastor that Beaver-Jones can play ahead of those kind of players. She can start over Chelsea's best, and she can deliver when Chelsea need her to.
Definitely competes in that bracket, and I think given her versatility as well, a hugely helpful player to have as part of the squad. I think if Chelsea are looking at ways to improve this season, I know a lot of people have already said right wing, but I think Beaver-Jones, if they were to sign a right winger and it was between Beaver-Jones and Carnereid as to who would stay, I think Beaver-Jones is the obvious candidate there. She's probably not a better right winger than Carnereid, but the fact she can cover across the front line and the fact that she does have a high goal output this season, I think is really impressive. So, yeah, done hugely well this season, Aggie Beaver-Jones. Chelsea as a whole, really impressive campaign. And yeah, dominant in the WSL. And let's talk about the media then, because I think the coverage of Chelsea going invincible has been a little bit weird for me. It feels like the achievement they've pulled off is being undervalued by many. I think a part of that is how Chelsea have played. We saw in the first half of the season a bit more of a high intensity Chelsea that were a lot more transitional and a bit more free flowing. So there's a lot of goals in those early games. I think that's the Palace game that was 7-0 in the first few weeks of the season, and the Tottenham game as well. That was 5-2. Those sorts of results show Chelsea in a really positive light. I think once January came around and once Bompastor could settle in more of her tactical ideas, more of her philosophies, we saw Chelsea move to a more control-based system. And I think a lot of people have said this is a downgrade, and that's personal opinion, but I think what Chelsea have looked to do, and it's probably why they came as invincibles, is that they've gone to be more controlling. So they've controlled games. They've stopped the opposition being able to dominate, or letting the game be a bit more transitional, and then obviously giving up chances. Instead, Chelsea hold the ball and then they create the chances. They dictate the game and they win the game, and that has made a difference this season. I do, I agree. It's definitely come at the detriment of Chelsea's attacking performance, but I think it has shored them up defensively. So it's difficult to find that balance in football, but I think and what happens this summer will be really important, because if they are going to play this control-based system, the players need to be the right fit for that squad. The system needs to work. All that sort of stuff needs to happen. But I think it has worked, and it has made Chelsea invincible. I think it's been really weird how Chelsea's achievements this season have been played down, even by Chelsea fans. I remember after the losses to Barcelona, people saying that Bompastor's not done a good job this season, when she'd already won the League Cup and the WSL was all but sewn up, and we were into the FA Cup final. I think the reaction from some people, and especially the media, especially when you look at the WSL team this season, we saw on Sky the other day, they were baffling. I mean, I know obviously that we don't have a Chelsea representative on Sky's punditry team, which that is bizarre in of itself. But I think to put on your broadcast Liverpool, Arsenal, and Manchester United ex-players, and then or Manchester City ex-players, sorry, and then be surprised when they pick those players in their WSL teams of the season, it just doesn't really make much sense.
Yeah, I mean, Emma Byrne picked, one of the Chelsea player in a team of the season.
And then she picked McCabe because I love McCabe, and picked Kim Little because, she's Kim Little. I think that was her exact reasoning on the broadcast. And I think that's part of the problem with the media this year. It has been really quiet on Chelsea. I think to an extent, I get that it's difficult to talk about Chelsea in the same way we don't just sit here and talk about Barcelona every week. We get stick from Barcelona fans for that. But it is difficult to talk about dominant teams because what do you say? Oh, wow, they're really good. They play really good football and they won every game. It's not as interesting to talk about from a content perspective. But I do think the media's been particularly quiet on Chelsea's achievements this season.
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes, as you say, from that dominance. When you win 5 titles in a row, going invincible seems like a very reasonable prospect. And I mean, obviously, not to fans, obviously. I don't think anyone expected Chelsea to go invincible this season. But to the media and on paper, if you win 5 titles on the bounce, a lot of people, it makes sense that you would go and win a 6th title and not end up
isn't as special, is it?
Yeah, exactly. I think that to the media, it felt like that it was always a possibility. But because if, say, City or Arsenal had turned up this season and gone invincible, that would have been an incredible, a crazy achievement because they'd have stopped Chelsea. Chelsea won 5 on the row, and another team comes through and wins it without losing a game. Absolutely brilliant. But when the side who have won it 5 times in a row come in and win it invincible, it's a bit like, oh wow, they did a little bit better than they did last season. And I think that it's a shame because going invincible for me is very different to winning a league title but losing.
Oh, 100%. I think not enough credit has been given as well to how Chelsea have handled losing Emma Hayes and that transition from Hayes to Bompastor. You'd expect there to be problems there. You'd expect there to be some teething issues, but it's been a seamless transition from the Hayes period dominance into this new era for Sonia Bompastor. So what happens now will be really interesting. So I don't think enough credit's been given there. I also think as well the media's been quiet because of the lack of a title race this season.
Yeah.
Because Arsenal, Man United and Man City, none of them have been able to lay a finger on Chelsea, either in terms of the table or when they've actually played them. It has dulled things down in that regard.
Yeah, and I think it's a shame because it's, from a neutral point of view, I think last year was massive for women's football and was massive for the league because when you had the title race so close between Chelsea and City, there was a lot of eyes on it. As you say, there was a lot more media broadcasts. There was a lot of even male football channels who were getting involved in their women's side because they saw the title race was so close and exciting, and there was a lot of coverage on it. But when a side is going invincible and is 9-12 points clear, there's not really much to say. As you say, it's that drama element. So if you are a media, if you are the media, you're not going to go, another game week's gone and Chelsea is still winning the league. When it is a title fight, it's more interesting. That's just modern day media, which is a shame because, as you say, it means that the Chelsea achievement has been downplayed. If Chelsea had gone invincible, but there had been a title race, I think there'd be a lot more credit given to Chelsea to go invincible under that pressure. But because Arsenal and United have fallen away and because Chelsea haven't dropped off at all, and the gap's got so big, I don't think people are giving it as much as they should be. But if Chelsea had gone invincible and the gap was still within 3 points, I think that Chelsea would get their plaudits like they deserve because that would have been even more incredible. But that's the kind of level that the media that's the kind of standard that the media would now expect from Chelsea.
Yeah, I think as well it's been reflected in the WSL attendances this season. Attendance figures have dropped by 10% from last campaign, which is worrying because obviously Chelsea, the WSL should be in a growth period now. And while there's a lot of different factors that perhaps could lead to that, I mean, the fact that, the last 2, when you're looking at last season, you'd had 2 summers of Lionesses where there was that boom.
Yeah.
Coming into this campaign, the Lionesses weren't at the Olympics, so there wasn't really anything this summer. And then coupled with this season perhaps not being as exciting as it should have been, coupled with the fact that a lot of clubs have now moved to their men's stadiums permanently or played most of their games at their men's stadium. I think that loses the exclusivity of those games. So yeah, we've seen that drop off, but I think part of that does have to come down to Chelsea being dominant, but it's on the other teams now to play catch up.
Yeah, it's not Chelsea. Chelsea. They're not saying, "Oh, Chelsea needs to be worse next year to make it more interesting." Yeah, as you say, the other sides have got to perform.
Well, there are some podcasts that would claim that. I saw a clip that really frustrated me the other day.
But it's not unreasonable that the other sides do get closer to Chelsea. They've all got money. They're not struggling. They're their owners. They've all got good squads. Yeah. Man City haven't got a manager.
The only team in the top two flights have any reason to complain about the spending is Durham, because Durham are not connected to a men's Premier League or Championship side. The rest of the teams,
or Michelle Kang.
I don't think London City Lions are strapped for cash, but they're the only team, Durham, who I think can rightfully say, well, actually, this spending's ridiculous. How are we supposed to compete? Yeah. The rest of them should look inwards and complain to the owners, because men, all of the women's championship sides, all the WSL sides are connected to either men's Premier League or men's championship clubs or Michelle Kang, apart from Durham. So I think Durham do get let off there, but yeah, I think Chelsea will continue to push on in the way that they have. I think there will be that now desire to go and win the Champions League. Yeah. They're obviously focused still on this season with the FA Cup final this Sunday. They want to win that. They want to confirm the treble and make sure no other side in England wins a trophy this season. That would be huge. Obviously, they can't do anything about Barcelona or Arsenal. Arsenal could still win the Champions League. But yeah, I think obviously now Chelsea's goal is to go and claim that elusive Champions League trophy. But a really impressive season. I want to do a video on it because I don't think it's been given enough credit. So I hope the Chelsea fans have enjoyed this one. Any neutral fans, I hope you have enjoyed this as well. We'll be back tomorrow with WSL Team of the Season, which should be tasty. I'm sure we'll have a bit of a debate there, Harry, so that should be good. Then we're back on Friday to preview the FA Cup final, which of course we will be at on Sunday. So if you're going along to the FA Cup final, you're supporting Chelsea, come and see us. If you're supporting United, come and see us before kick-off, not afterwards. That won't be good for whoever's lost. So yeah, make sure if you're going along to Wembley, come and find us. We'll be around. Other than that, make sure to check out the videos, and then have a good rest of your week. Thank you guys very, very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.